ever had a goal you couldn't complete? Well, chances are it wasn't a SMART goal. You see, SMART goals have three main characteristics. They're easy to understand, they're achievable, and they have a clear point of success. So let's break that down. SMART goals are specific, they are measurable, they are attainable, they are relevant to your overall aims, and they are time-bound. But that in itself doesn't mean much to you, so why don't we use that with a specific scenario or goal? A common goal that many people have is they want to be rich. So let's take a look at that one. Now, I want to be rich has a couple of basic issues. Firstly, how do I know when I've won? How do I know when I'm rich? What is rich anyway? Rich means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And lastly, by when? When am I intending to be rich? The goal I want to be rich isn't complete yet. It's still in its very early stages. So let's use the SMART acronym to turn I want to be rich into a real goal. So the first thing to use here is the S, or specific. Now for specific, we use the 5 W's. That is who, what, when, where, and why. And that allows us to really break down the goal into its core component parts. So let's get started with that. The first one is who. Well, in this case, it's me. I want to be rich. So that's that. The next one is what. Well, rich isn't specific enough, so let's break it down a little bit. For me personally, I think that to be rich, I need to have $5 million in my bank account. So I'm going to say $5 million. You might want to pick a higher or a lower number. That's up to you. The next one is when. Well, I'd like to have that $5 million by the time I turn 50. So I'm going to choose by the time before I turn 50. I'm a little sensitive about it, so I'm not going to tell you how old I am right now, but suffice it to say the when for me is before I turn 50. Where, in this particular instance, doesn't really matter because I'm going to be working in various places. Depending on your goal, though, the where may become important. And lastly, we have why. Please don't skip over why. It becomes really important later on. In this case, I want to have $5 million before I turn 50 because 50 is when I would like to retire. So now if you take a look at that, just that, we've got I want to be rich versus we now know that it's me, it's $5 million, it's before I turn 50, the where doesn't matter, and why am I doing it? So that I can retire. Already this goal is starting to look a little bit better, and we've only done the S. So let's move on now to measurable. The reason we have measurable is because we need to know where the finish line is. We need to know when we've completed the goal. All right. So let's take a look at why. Let's imagine that as a boss, I say to you, okay, look, I want you to keep running in this race until you win. Just run until you win. And you pass a milestone and you're thinking, okay, have I finished yet? Am I done? And you pass another milestone and, you don't know when you win until you see the finish line. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that a goal isn't a good goal until there is a finish line. And in a SMART goal, the finish line must either be a true or false, it must be a yes or a no, or it needs to be a number. Because only with a true or false, yes or a no, or a number, does that work like a finishing line. And so in this case, we've got $5 million. $5 million is a number. If I've got $4,999,999 in the account, well then I haven't achieved my goal. The moment I get that extra dollar and I've got $5 million, then I know I've passed my goal. So that is measurable and it gets the tick of approval. All right, after measurable, we have attainable. For me personally, I feel that $5 million is attainable. However, you may feel that it's not and might want to set a lower number, or some people might say it's a bit too low and so they might want to set it a little bit higher. The reason we have attainable is so that you don't lose the motivation for a goal. For example, let's say you have a staff member and you say to them, look, I want you to make $1 million worth of sales this month. Well, if they're only selling products worth $50 and they're not sort of selling on the internet via mass marketing, that may be a completely impossible goal, and so they'll ignore it. It's not a real goal. In this case though, $5 million by the time I turn 50, I think it's attainable, and so we give it the tick. The next one is relevant. The relevant is why I ask you to make sure that you do include the why in the 5 W's. Relevant means that this SMART goal fits into the overall reason that you're doing this. So in this case, we've got, why do I want $5 million? Well, I want that $5 million so that I can retire. All right. And so in this case, yes, $5 million is relevant to my overall sort of goal or aim of retiring. So for example, if I had have said that I want to have a Ferrari so that I can retire, well, that doesn't work because that's not really relevant to me retiring. That's relevant to something else. It still could be a SMART goal, but in this case, $5 million is far better because getting $5 million is actually relevant to me wanting to retire. So in this case, that's a big fat yes. Next, we have time bound. Well, as stated before, we're going to make it by the time I'm 50 so that I can retire. So yes, it is time bound. So if you take a look at that now, we've got a whole bunch of the good stuff. And I can now take the goal of I want to be rich, and using those elements, I can turn it into I want to have $5 million by the time I'm 50 years old so that I can retire. And that is a far better goal than the goal of I want to be rich, which I think we can all agree isn't that fantastic in the light of our new SMART goal. All right, so just to be very clear, SMART goals are specific, they are measurable, they are attainable, they are relevant to your overall goals and aims, and they are time-bound. And that, in a nutshell, is a SMART goal.